So I think the question that everybody wants to know is, should I be doing these and for how long? I think most climbers listening to this probably climb regularly. They probably do some type of, call it climbing training. Maybe they do max hangs or some other hangboard protocol. Maybe they climb on boards, system boards that tend to be higher intensity, like Emil does. That's that sort of high intensity, low duration bouldering training. And so the question is, should I add these two? It sounds like they're not a replacement for all the other stuff, but they're tedious, right? They're tedious. It's hard to stay up with twice a day for 10 minutes a day all the time. It sounds like for anyone with tweaky fingers, these are a great option. Just, try it out, see if it helps. But what are the implications for people long-term who are just focused on wanting to optimize their performance, wanting to optimize their finger strength for climbing, while also staying healthy so that they can stay in the game? I mean, is it to do something like this protocol all the time, every day, forever? Or do you guys think about it in cycles, cycling in and out of it? Or, once you've done an initial cycle, can it be relaxed? Like Natalie, you mentioned that you just use these to warm up on your climbing days. It sounds like you're not doing it twice a day, every single day on rest days and everything else. So yeah, what are the implications for climbers? The people that are asking, what should I do? Should I do these? What do you think?
I think it depends on your priorities. I mean, I know for me, like I am just really bad about doing things on rest days. So I will try to do them on rest days sometimes, but I have things to do. I'm busy. I'm not someone who can just sit at the TV and be like, oh, I need to do my exercises. But there are people like that. So I think there's no harm in doing them. If you can sit down and it's only 10 minutes, there's really no harm to it. You're probably not going to get injured doing them since it's so low intensity. But I think it's just really about what your own priorities are, how dedicated you are to training. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, so the original was done by Felix. He did it because he was injured all the time. And so when we talk about doing it twice a day, that's to get maximal signal with the minimal amount of wear and tear. And so when you're injured and you're out from doing what you want to do, that's a great way to get back so that your fingers are healthy again. And really, that's what he was trying to do. And once he's done that, he's kept doing it twice a day a lot of times, but he's gone down to once a day for most days, simply because, just like Natalie was saying, that's the thing that allows him to keep climbing, because once he stops, he picks up injuries and then he's out of climbing again. So he just knows that if he does it, that's what he's going to get. So we published a paper with a NBA basketball player who had a hole in the middle of his patellar tendon. We fixed the hole, and basically it didn't matter what we said to him afterwards. He was in there doing it every single day. Because, he ended up signing a more than a $50 million contract to keep playing basketball because his knee was healthy. And so there was no way in hell we were going to stop him from doing it because he was doing it all the time. We didn't have to tell anybody else on the team to do these protocol because he was like, oh, you got knee problems? And he would just go off as he was basically almost like he had some sort of religious experience.
He's born again.
And now
yeah.
he's trying to explain that.
Yeah.
The reality is that if you're doing it once a day, that's going to be plenty for most everybody, even if you just do it. And for a lot of times, what we'll do is anytime you train, what we try and do is we say, look, do one or two of these afterwards as well. Just because if you've picked up any kind of small injury, if you've picked up any kind of small problem during the training, or if you have weak spots to begin with, now you've trained for a long time. All of the strong bits in your fingers have started to get a little bit stretchier and they've worn down a little bit. So it's a perfect time for me to get more equal load through the rest of any part of the tissue that didn't get the load during your training. So now if I finish with that, or as Natalie does, she starts with it. But what I would do is if anytime I have somebody train or compete, what I do is two 30-second isometric holds with 2 minutes in between. That's going to be plenty to add on to that session, because all what I've done is I've given myself just a little bit extra load that's now going to give me a signal through any little part of the tendon that didn't get a signal from the work that I've done. And if it didn't get a signal from the work that I've done, it didn't get the signal because that section is so injured that it's not really contributing. And so now what I've done is I've given that last little signal to that. And that's going to be enough for most people to keep the structures relatively healthy and working at a high level. If you find that you're more injury prone, like Natalie is, then what she's going to do is she's going to incorporate them. You can incorporate them in before. If you do them before, we say use the 10-second ones, because we don't want to have too much relaxation and then go off and do something big.
Right.
What we're going to do is we want to have something that's more of what people call an activation, where I'm now going to activate, I'm going to get load through it. It's going to be a really low amount of load, and I can start. And it's basically what most people would consider a warm-up. But this is a really good way of getting that tissue so that all of the things that we want to have happen, the sliding underneath these pulleys, all of that stuff is happening the way it should. And now as we go to load it, now it's going to, the movement of the tissue that should be there is going to be there, because we've allowed those things to start at a very low intensity before we start into doing the more high intensity work.
Yeah, I think as a warm-up tool as well, I've noticed with myself that I'm kind of pretty much ready to start pulling hard as soon as I get on the wall. So I'll do them. It's 10 minutes. It's a little tedious, but it's like, it saves me a lot of time of having to do a bunch of like V0 to be, you know, easy climbs until I'm ready to go on harder stuff. So I think it actually like saves me time and makes my fingers feel so much more healthy when I do start pulling hard.
And do you just copy exactly what Emil did, the same combination of finger positions and grips and edges and things?
Yeah, basically. I think I'll kind of modify it. I think he even suggests like modifying it if you want to work on certain things. I noticed, I think my pinkies, I was crimping too hard on them, and it kind of neglects the pinkies because it has like front two and then fourth and third finger for the crimps. So I've started doing back three, and then at the end I'll just kind of add, like if I'm warming up, I'll activate like kind of a harder pulls near the end. So I modify it. I think that's kind of the best, is just kind of know what's feeling tweaky and go from there.
Yeah.
It's not like this grip like combination is the perfect one, because we don't know.
Yeah, that's great. That makes sense. If you're watching this video, you're probably obsessed with trying to get better at climbing. I know the feeling. I've been there too. If you're serious about building world-class finger strength, I have a gift for you today. I'm giving away my free finger training PDF. It's called the Grinds Program. I developed this program over years of my own training experiments, as well as hundreds of interviews with top climbers and experts. This is the exact protocol that I used to go from below average finger strength to pulling world-class numbers and doing my first ever one-arm hang on a 20 mil edge. It's completely free. There's no catch. Link in the description below if you want to check it out. Back to the video. And then, yeah, Keith, I loved the recommendation you just gave. Just 2 sets of 30-second isometrics with 2 minutes in between at the end. And it sounds like you don't have to wait the 6 to 8 hours after your climbing session to do that, because the percentage of the tendon that wasn't getting stimulus during your climbing session is still fresh. And is that right?
Exactly. Okay. So the idea is that any weak parts, any injured parts, they're going to be stress shielded through the other activities. That's why we're not getting the even signal through the whole tendon. Now, when we do these really long, low intensity isometrics, now we're going to, especially in a fatigued or in a somewhat weakened tendon, now what we're going to get is we're going to get load through that injured part more, and we're going to at least get that 10 minutes worth of signal, or that short signal is going to be kind of maximal within that tissue. And so if you're doing especially stuff where you're going to do a lot of dynamic moves and you're not going to get too much through any part of the tendon, then that's a missed opportunity for getting the positive signal. And so now if we get that positive signal through any weak spots that we have, the likelihood of developing problems later is going to be minimized to some degree.
Yeah.
And it's a very low kind of, there's the small amount of time investment to get the possibility of improving the signal.
I mean, that sounds great, just regardless, because climbers are terrible at cooling down. You know, it's so rare that or athletes in general, right? It's so rare that I finish a hard session, a hard training session, and then take the extra 5 minutes or 10 minutes to do a little cool down. And then, you know, there's tons of research on that. We all know it's a good idea, but we skip that part and we go get a beer or whatever, you know, go back to work, go back to our busy lives. So yeah, that's great. I like that recommendation for people.